What's up, everyone? It's Veer here. So, today I wanted to give you an introduction to historical stock data in C Sharp. So, let's go ahead and get started. We'll fire up our Visual Studio 2019 and we will create a new project. This project that I'm going to be building will be built on the .NET Core, which is a little bit more portable than the .NET Framework, but you could do it on the .NET Framework. So I'm going to name this project Historical Stock Data. And you can save it anywhere. I'll just save it in the default location. And I'm going to build it with the .NET Core 3.1. There's a couple different options, but I'm just going to go 3.1. And then go ahead and click Create. So now that we have, let me drag this over. Now that we have our project built, the first thing we're going to want to do is add the Yahoo Finance API nuget package to the project. So to do this, we go over to our Solution Explorer, right click on the project, and then go to Manage NuGet Packages. So now we obviously have no installed NuGet packages. That's okay. We'll browse and we'll type in Yahoo Finance API and download the Yahoo Finance API by Carl Wan. Click install, and this will install quite a few different dependencies that will be used by the API, and we'll accept the license and wait for that to install. Alright, it looks like we're good. So now within our program.cs, we want to reference that Yahoo Finance API. So we'll say using Yahoo Finance API. So now, within our main, we have a few things that we want to set up. So the first thing that I'm going to do is actually make a new class. So the class program, it's okay, but we have a static void main. So all the classes, all the functions, methods within the program class also have to be static. So that would be a problem because the Yahoo Finance API uses asynchronous tasks. And there will be more on that to come. But essentially an asynchronous task is like the opposite of a static method. So we're going to make a new class and we'll call it stock data. And within this class, we need an asynchronous task that will handle the fetching of the historical stock data. So we'll say async task and make it type int, and we'll name it get stock data. And we're going to accept 3 arguments. One will be the ticker symbol. We also need the start date and the end date. So we're going to have a couple of red lines here. That's okay, because right now we don't have any, the program doesn't understand what a task is. But that's okay, we haven't specified it. So what we need to do is add another reference to a namespace. So using system.threading.tasks. So that got rid of that red line. And the issue right here is we don't have any return. It's like, why are you returning a task int? There's no return. But that's okay, we will fix that. So for the time being, we can just say return 1. And now we're ready to start writing some code. So since this is an asynchronous task, we need to run the asynchronous aspects of this in a try-catch block. This is done more as a security reason, so if the asynchronous task fails or it never completes, the program can continue, or it can catch that error and the whole thing doesn't crash. So what we need to do is write try, and we'll go ahead and put our catch block in too. So in the try, we're going to have var historic underscore data equals await. So the await is the key word for an asynchronous task. Very important. So we're going to await the yahoo.getHistoricalAsync, and we need to pass it our 3 arguments. So the symbol, the start date, and the end date. So that's good, but what if we want to know the company's name? Well, that's built into the Yahoo Finance API. So what we need to do is make a security and set that equal to another asynchronous call to the yahoo.symbols function, and we'll pass in our symbol, and we want the fields, and field dot long name, and then this is an asynchronous, so we say query async, so search asynchronously. So this yahoo.symbols ... returns an I-read-only dictionary. So an I-read-only dictionary, if you know dictionaries, it's key value pairs, right? So now we need to index our dictionary to extract the name, essentially. So what we're going to do is make another variable called ticker, and we'll set that equal to the security at the index of the symbol. Next, we're going to extract the company name by setting that equal to the ticker at the index of field.longname. So now we have our historical data and the company's name. So we really just want to output this data just for this example. So what we're going to do is iterate through this historic data. Historic data is an I-read-only list. So we need to iterate through that list and output the data that we want. So I'm going to say for int I equals 0 while I is less than the historic data dot count, so the length of that list, I++. So we're going to output this data by saying console.writeLine. So we're going to say company name plus closing price on, and now we can put in the date. So you could say historic data dot date, but this gives you the time and a couple other things you may not want. I don't really want them, so I'm going to kind of do this the long way. So I like to do use a function called element on, and you'll see what I mean here in a second. Or element at, I'm sorry. You could also index the historic data by doing, the brackets. So you could say historic data index I dot, whatever method you want. But I like to use the element at function. So I'm going to say using system.link to make that call. So now I can say historic data dot element at I dot datetime dot month plus then a forward slash plus historic data dot element at I dot datetime dot day plus another forward slash, and you guessed it, historic data dot element at I dot year. Dot datetime dot year. And then I'm going to do a little formatting, so I'll say put a colon and then a US dollar sign, And now we just want to output, we're going to output the closing price. There's a couple different options that you could output, but I'm just going to do the closing price. Oh, I needed a plus here. There we go. So we say plus, and then historic data dot element at I dot close. So that's good, but you will notice that close is a decimal. So it's going to be, maybe 6 or 7 digits after the decimal point. So I like to make it look pretty. So I'm going to say math.round. And we're going to round this to 2 decimal places. Like so. Great. So now this will handle the historical data and, outputting it as well. But from within main, we need to do a little something so that the program understands that we're making an asynchronous call. Otherwise, it would just kind of run straight through sequentially, and it wouldn't wait for this function to run. So the way that we're going to do that is with an awaiter. And we'll get to that in a second. So for now, we're just going to set the main up to run in a loop that allows the user to continuously input ticker symbols, like a 3 or 4 character symbol to reference a stock. And then when they no longer want to input a symbol and get the historical data, the program will just exit. So we'll do that by saying char continue string equals yes, or y. And then while the continue stir equals y, we're going to say console dot writeLine, enter a stock ticker that you want historic data for. Simple enough. And now we need a variable to hold the user's input. So symbol equals console dot readLine dot to upper. So we use the to upper because stock symbols are always capitalized. So whether you input it in lowercase or uppercase, it will always be in uppercase, which is just good for making these calls to the API for that ticker. So now we want to know what are the dates that we want to get this for. So I'll say console.writeLine, enter the amount of months of historic data that you want to retrieve. Okay, simple enough. So to store that, we want to store it as an integer, right? So let's say they enter 4. That means that we want to get 4 months of historical data for some stock. So the way that we make our input as an integer, we write int timespan equals convert.toInt32 console.readLine. So obviously this convert to int32 is what's going to convert this read line, which is originally a string, to an integer. Simple enough. So now we have everything that we need from the user. So we just got to do a little formatting before we make our call. So we'll say datetime end date equals datetime dot today. So you might be wondering, why is the end date today? Well, I'm just doing, from today and then let's say 4 months out, 5 months out, whatever the user inputs. So the very last day that we're getting historical data from is today, right? So that's why we can set the end date to today. So now we need our start date. So datetime start date equals datetime dot add Oops, my bad. So we'll start from today. So datetime.today dot add months, and then negative the time span. Negative time span. So it might look a little funky, but essentially, like if the user entered, let's say 4, saying they wanted 4 months of historical data, in the program, we need to say, okay, go 4 months into the past, right? So negative time, essentially, and start there. Start getting historical data from that day. So now we're ready to make our call. So we'll say stock data, so an instance of this stock data class, and we'll just call this stock equals new stock data. So we have a new instance of our stock data class named stock. And now we need to make an awaiter. And I'll explain this a little as I go here. So stock.get stock data, passing our 3 arguments. So start date, end date. So the reason for this awaiter is it's awaiting a task of type int. Okay? So recall that our task int function here, get stock data, it's going to return 1. So when it returns 1, this awaiter will now have a result of 1, signifying that this function was called and it was run to completion, and we can now move forward in our main function. So we need an if statement to know when does this result equal 1. Good question. So when the awaiter.result equals 1, we will say console.writeLine. We'll just write a blank line, and then console.writeLine. Do you wish to get historical data for another ticker? Yes or no? And then just set our continue string, our looping value essentially, equals convert.toChar console.readLine. So we need this convert to char because, once again, the read line is a string. So we just want a char. So this will work. And at this point, we're pretty much ready to go. So I'm just going to put a little something here at the bottom just to know that the program ran all the way through to completion. So I'll put, have a nice day. Alright, so the only thing that we could still improve on real quick is this catch statement. So we have a try and a catch, and the catch is only run if this try block, whatever's inside this try block here, fails. So in the catch statement, we just want to say, okay, there was some erroneous behavior, right? So we'll say console.writeLine failed to get symbol, and then the symbol that we were running it for. Hopefully this is never called though, right? So now we're going to go ahead and run our program. And we should see enter a stock ticker that you want historic data for. I'm going to enter Apple, and I know that their ticker is AAPL. So I enter AAPL and the amount of months of historic data that I want to retrieve. So I'm going to say 6 months. And now it's making that API call, and there we go. We have our data. So real quick, let's just make sure that this ran the way that we were expecting it to. So it has the closing price on 3-5, and today is a Sunday. Today is 3/7. So that would have been Friday, which was the last, open market day. And we should see 6 months of data. So I'd expect the first entry to have been somewhere around 9-5 or 9-8. Very good. So that is 6 months of data. And we do see all the prices, the closing price on each day. And it's rounded to 2 decimal places, just like we said. So the final thing that we might want to check is this data accurate? So since it comes from Yahoo Finance, let's check with Yahoo Finance. So if we see on Yahoo Finance, the closing price of the last trading day, we have 121.42. And right here, the closing price presented by our program, 121.42. It worked exactly how we expected it to. So the final thing that we're going to want to test is, does it work? Does our loop work correctly? So I'm going to say yes, I want to get data for another ticker. And I'm going to do Microsoft. So I know Microsoft's ticker is MSFT. And I'll do 5 months. And there we have it. The historical data dating from 5 months ago, in trading days, which is 10/7. So that's like exactly 5 months ago. And all the prices rounded to 2 decimal places. So at this point, as long as I click no, I should see have a nice day. And that means our program ran correctly. All the asynchronous behavior was controlled and we knew what was going on the entire time, which is very important when you're coding asynchronously. So no, and have a nice day. Very nice. So I want to take the time to say thank you for watching this video, and if you have any suggestions for future videos or general comments, please leave them in the comments of this video. And if you like this content and you want me to keep making more, please think about liking this video and subscribing to my channel. Thank you for your time, and have a blessed day.